those that are least able to help themselves will be the laboratory animals. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a very provocative talk. We have some time for a few minutes for questions. So I wonder if anyone has any questions, and I think people have a microphone, they can hand it to them. So, I've been told that you can write your questions on a card too, and we'll get around and get them. All right, go ahead. Woman in the green here. Have your hand.
All right, some of the things that come up from shale are normally radioactive. Obviously, it actually depends on what state of the process they're in. There can be, along with in the produced water, there can be radioactive materials. That's part of it. The other part of it is, in some cases, radioactivity is actually injected with the hydraulic fracturing fluid to trace the fractures. So there's radioactivity involved in this all along. Whether that's the most important issue, or some of the hydrocarbons that people are being exposed to is the most important issue, I'm not really sure.
Mastitis in cows, and I wanted to know what that was, as well as when spoken about the whole time is in doubt, and I was, how long is that? What were you referencing there? I don't remember what that was.
Okay, so the first question, mastitis, an inflammation of the udder of the milk-producing glands of the cow. And your second question, I'm not
About
sure.
the whole time that an animal that was exposed to one or more toxic chemicals would be held back from being
Oh,
slaughtered.
whole time, okay. So we had one case, only one case that was quarantined. And so when you set up a quarantine, you define a whole time. And in that particular case, if you read the report, it was case number 3. And that was a whole time set for strontium. So they found strontium in the wastewater that those cows were exposed to. They were very concerned about that for good reason. So that was, though, as far as my understanding is, it was a theoretically determined whole time. So the whole time is the time that you keep the cow or animal back from slaughter, with the idea that that drug will pass through the body and will not get into the food supply, so it'll be gone. So does that answer
Do
the
they
question
have
about
set
what
whole
whole
time for every chemical or most of the chemicals?
Well, in that particular case, those cows were exposed to more than strontium. In that particular case, organic compounds, for instance, were not tested in that wastewater. They did minerals and heavy metals. Well, that's one in my mind. Where were the organics? They were in there. Nobody tested for them. Should they have been held back for those if they found them? Yes. Do we know what the whole time is? Not experimentally determined one. But so that brings up all those questions. But that's what whole time is. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. I read your report when it came out, and I was really impressed, and I'm very impressed with this presentation. So I'm wondering how much, what's been done to get this information out to the public, basically farmers. Has there been writing, has it been written up for farm journals and different kinds of publications that people read that may be particularly affected by the veterinary aspects of it? Because I don't think this, we're talking a lot about human stuff out there when we talk to the, we talk to the public, but we don't talk too much about the animal effects, and it's because part of the reason is because it's not out there in the public. So I was wondering what kind of writing
Well,
summaries.
So this lecture that we just gave is based on our research, and at this time it was that we submitted it for publication. It was just published in January this year. It's based on 24 studies, case reports that we had, and it is published in a journal called New Solutions, Occupational and Environmental Health, Journal of Occupational and Environmental Health. So that's where
They're
it is.
academics that read it.
I'm sorry?
They're academics that read it.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. This sort of thing needs to get out.
There needs to be a publicly written, popular, it needs to be a popular written presentation of it to go to publications that are read by
Right,
people
no,
who
absolutely
hear
agree.
our-
So when Robert suggested the follow-up research, that's what we're looking into now. What's the next step? Where do we go from here? We're getting more cases. Now, how do we direct this research and where does it go? I will say that there will be a special edition of that journal that we just mentioned that we're working on now that will have many different topics, including health in it. So that, but again, it will be in an academic journal.
Okay, but what you're getting at is how do we get it out to the public? And that's, okay, it has been picked up by a lot of news services. It's been, like the first thing was out was leaked news in Australia, actually. So there have been a number of reporters that have written about this study in actually all over, I said Australia, but actually all over the world. It has been published in Pennsylvania. News. I think it was in one of the Philadelphia online papers anyway, a few months ago. So it has been in the popular press, but our goal here really was to get something into the academic literature. We wanted to publish it in the academic literature because that's where, you know, scientific debates occur.
Hi, my name is Bob Shurar. I'm a public health physician, a member of the college. I agree with your statement about trying to get more scientific data because I think that's absolutely crucial. And three thoughts have come to mind. One is that while we may not know what chemicals are being used in the fracking process, why don't we collect environmental samples before and after building occurs, saving them until we do have more information to know what we're looking for, so we at least have data that we can analyze. The second question would be, if we know what some of the chemicals are in the fracking process, why don't we use animal toxicology studies to determine what the MCL levels should be, rather than just, quote, making them up? And the third issue is that for those animals that died acutely, if we could get environmental proper specimens, could we not take a look at them? And I would suspect that they'd have high concentrations of whatever the chemical is causing the thing in their system. Can we take a look and see what the chemical is using mass spectrophotometry or whatever people do? But I think it's crucial that we begin getting scientific data, and these are just some of the ideas that we might be able to explore. And we don't need politicians, and we don't need the industry to help us do that.
Yes, yes, and yes. Absolutely agree with everything you said. People have been trying to do some of these things. I mean, you can, taking samples before and after and storing them. It ends up taking quite a bit of money to do that sort of thing. That funding hasn't been available. I mean, people are looking for it just to try to do those things. Let me skip to your last comment about those particular animals. Nobody has access to those particular animals because it's been shut down by non-disclosure agreements, and you could not get that.
So I just want to add on that. That was the Louisiana case again. That was the closest we came to getting definitive evidence. I got as far as the final necropsy report. That was the only case where I was unable to speak to the farmers. They refused to answer my phone calls. A reporter on that case was on it initially, told me that I will never speak to them. I found no documentation after that. She said, you will not find it. I have no proof of what she said, but she told me that they were paid off as out-of-court settlement and non-disclosure. So when you say, can we find those chemicals in the tissue? Can we work that up? I'm sure somebody knows it. We don't know it. And that's where the non-disclosure agreements come in, and that's where we get shut out.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Schmidt with Sierra Club here in Pennsylvania. Thank you for doing this important conference. And we certainly agree the Corbett administration worked to remove the $2 million that had been put in the legislation for health studies, and at the end of the day, that was eliminated for funding. I don't think this is really an accident that they're eliminating the funding. So the question I have is, are you aware of any health effects studies being done in Pennsylvania currently by anybody? And is there any kind of comprehensive health registry for people who believe they're, or for people who are having health effects in drilling areas?
I think that that's a really, really important point, but it's best to wait to the panel discussion, because I think you're going to hear a lot about that during the panel discussion. Is that okay?
One more question. This gentleman way over the side of
People were talking at each other, not to each other. I think the real debate is that a more unhealthy should be out of work than it is to live in a social environment. And if that's not discussed, people will be talking over each other's heads.
Immediately after that eruption. But she just buried it. What would be the protocol? What do we tell these people they should do if this happens?
Thank you for asking that question. So the question was, with a case where animals died, and they suspect it might have something to do with drilling, or I might say as a veterinarian, whatever they've died from, and you want to find out why the animal died. You want to do a necropsy or an animal autopsy, and you want to get that animal in as soon as possible. Now, you know, if it's really hot and it's the summertime, those tissues are going to degrade really, really fast. If it's freezing out and cold, then you've got a little bit more time. Ideally, a pathologist will tell you that it's better to have fresh tissue that's not frozen. We can do histopath and look at the tissues and really look at the lesions. Even when it's frozen, we can still cut it in. But we do what's called a gross post-mortem. We open the animal up, we look inside, and it's better to see fresh tissue as it is without being frozen. So in that case, instead of burying those sheep, I would have said if she could have afforded to get that animal to somebody who could do a necropsy, a good necropsy, not only cut it open, look at the gross post-mortem, but also then test for at least the minerals and heavy metals. That would be ideal. Some vets can. Some vets are very comfortable doing that. Other vets are not. So it really depends on a large animal veterinarian. If they're comfortable opening it up and saying, I know what a sheep should look like or a cow inside. That tissue looks good or doesn't. If it doesn't look good, then hopefully then they can take it to a laboratory and have it analyzed further. But that would be the thing to do rather than bury the sheep.
Let me put in a quick plug here. Cornell is actually set up very nicely for doing a lot of this. The people know about the issues there. We've talked with pathologists, the people in the diagnostic lab are well aware of the issues. That's actually a very good place to go. I would say if you're going to find a place that's completely unbiased, this is the closest you're going to get.
Okay, I'm sorry that we have to stop here. There will be opportunity for more questions after the panel discussion, so you have a chance to ask some more. Let's take a 10-minute break.